Welcome to another episode of Power Bourbon. And tonight we are going to jump right into the controversy. We've had this bottle. I've just not had time to put it into the lineup, but we're going to drink it because it's kind of relevant, which is 13th Colony, not the double oaked, though Chuck does have a bottle of that. This is just their regular bourbon. So, I don't know if you've been following out there. I'm guessing because you watch us that you probably follow some of the whiskey stuff. But this just says Southern Bourbon Whiskey on the front, handcrafted oak barrels, small batches. It's 95 proof. And the sticking point that a lot of people are talking about is it says produced and bottled by 13 colonies in Georgia. Now, oh, there we go. There, get it all set up, looking nice. We are going to just review the bourbon. But as we review the bourbon, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the reasons people are starting to have issues with 13 colonies. So that way, you know what we think of the bourbon, but also what we think of all the conspiracy theory stuff, because why not? It's fun. So,
Well,
let's
and maybe
do.
we tone it down from conspiracy theory because it seems like this is has some strong evidence against it. So really
Mhm.
not a conspiracy, but a investigative reveal or
Yes.
um, pursuit of the truth.
Yes. And to be fair, a lot of it is more uh, targeted at the double oak and a less at just the regular bourbon that they do. Uh, so the regular bourbon is supposedly, according to the distillery, somewhere between 4 and 6 years. If it was less than four, if you've watched any of these shorts I've put out recently, it would have to say it on the bottle. Any bourbon under four has to have the age stated. But that's also part of the reason people think that they left off straight. So that is a big red flag. That opens it up to a whole bunch of other categories and meddling and things like that. The other big thing people have problems with is on the back, this produced and distilled by, because those are two terms that legally mean absolutely nothing in the bourbon world. If it says distilled by, that means that those people actually distilled it. If it says bottled by, that means they actually bottled it. But produced and bottled by, it's just kind of out there in the realm.
Open
So
to interpretation.
yeah, they can put that, and there's no like I can't go to the TTB and be like, hey, they put that, and they're not doing this. It like there's just nothing there. So the rub of it is they've been around for 15 years, so it could be some of their own distillate. And apparently they do have a still on premise that gets used. Uh, but they've said themselves they can't keep up with their demand, which kind of happened after the double oak got really popular. And so they've started sourcing, but they're not saying from where or how long or anything like that. And so that's where the rub of the main stuff has come off is, and I think that's true with everything. And that's why Chuck and I are big fans of Barrel, Bardstown, and those places, is they're just transparent. Like
Transparent.
I don't care if you source your stuff. There's some great non-producer distillers out there, but you need to be honest with it. And so I think that's just where the community is I think a lot of people in the community really like their products and we'll tell you what we think of it, but they want transparency.
Yeah, maybe that's a good break. So let's dive into
Yeah.
the bourbon here. And have been a fan of the double oak.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I got this one because it was one of the only ones in my price range. That's been my big beef with
and one
them.
that you can actually find. I mean,
Yeah.
I got pretty lucky because my brother was able to. He lived close and could track down the double oaked. Get a little sweetness, like a butterscotch, maybe even a little citrus in there.
Yeah, and there's I get some vanilla and a little bit of like barrel char or something. Uh it's very reminiscent of a very specific distillery to me, but that's just because I've
Go
done a
on,
lot of re- it,
speculate.
it it smells very similar to Green River. Like if I took your regular Green River and put it next to this, I think they're going to smell basically the same.
We'll come back to that because I think I still have a sample of that Green River that you sent
Okay.
a while back. So
I have a
we could.
couple bottles somewhere. So, but yeah, the nose is delightful. So if I remember right, this bottle was right around $50. Uh, I I'm happy with it. Like it smells nice and very traditional bourbon notes.
What's our proof point?
95.
So I'd say the nose is pretty adequate for a 95 proof bourbon, not overly powering. Um,
Yeah.
but some good notes there to find, particularly on an entry proof bourbon.
Yeah, absolutely.
That palate is almost overly sweet. Some
Hmm.
orange peel, butterscotch.
Yeah. There's a lot of orange in it. That's like it'd make a good pairing with an old fashioned
Mm,
because of how much orange is in it. But yeah, it's very fruity. And then some vanilla, some caramel, your traditional stuff. But the finish really has some spices coming present. So maybe some cinnamon, cardamom, uh, maybe some nutmeg in there. So it gets, I would say also like the chili, five chili spice. Just it's very good.
lots of spices.
Yes.
Yeah, like a spice peach. Kind of what I am left with is clove and nutmeg, cinnamon,
Hmm.
with a little bit of that lingering fruit.
Yeah. I mean, overall, it's a really good bottle of bourbon. That's why I've been slowly drinking mine. I will say, originally, I liked the bottle design because it made me think of birthday bourbon.
Birthday
And now,
bourbon.
yeah. And now trying to store it on my shelf, I hate the bottle design because I'm
That's
like,
yeah.
I have no place to put this.
If
But
you're
yeah, no,
limited on space, those bottles are not the best design.
yeah, exactly. So, no, like if there wasn't all this controversy and they were transparent with everything on it, to me, this is a buy. Like it's good. I just want to know all the facts going into it. Like, I don't care if it's Green River. Like, we know it's really hard to take somebody else's distillate, somebody else's stuff, blend it, and then turn it into your own. There's been a lot of people that have failed at that over the years. So I just want more transparency. Is where I am.
Yeah, and I guess so. Like two things. One, I love give it all the way down to exactly where it's sourced from, mash
Yep.
bill, like just give me all the info. That's what I want. But understand that that's not everybody's. Particularly if you're sourcing, your concern is that somebody else is going to source the same thing and basically, just replicate what you're doing. Now,
Yeah.
there's obviously you can build a brand, and people have proven that they're capable of doing that, or that's possible. Penelope is a
Yeah.
good example of that. Everybody was MGP, but yet they still did it, and
Well,
they were
and
very
Smoke
successful at it.
Wagon.
Smoke wagon, exactly. They know where that stuff's coming from, so you don't have to. But I thought like not having a distilled in state on that label is quite surprising to me.
Yes.
I think it's deceiving, particularly in this day and age when your average bourbon consumer probably knows more today than they did a decade ago for sure. Um, and so that I think is unfortunate both to those of us that drink a lot of bourbon or though to the entry. I think it's to the person just getting into bourbon. Honestly, when I tasted the double oaked, I was like, this is really good. And how have I not heard of this distillery before?
Yeah.
So I was skeptical probably from day one that I'm like, there's a distillery in Georgia that I never heard of producing this type of quality whiskey. Seemed too good to be true. Maybe it was.
The other thing, I guess, that makes me question a lot of it is when you look at everything like Hard Truth is doing or Starlight or anything like that, that's just next door in Indiana. And they throw Indiana everything on that bottle because they want people to be proud that this was distilled, made everything in Indiana. And it is a little questionable that they're not doing the same thing with Georgia because you would think Georgia would want like all of that on that bottle to be like, hey, this award-winning bourbon is Georgia through and through. And so by not putting that on there, it's just like, is it?
Yeah, because to our not, I mean, there's nothing there or nothing that has been suggested that's illegal. I mean,
Right.
it's they're running a, a legal business and putting out a product that people are enjoying and buying, and so from that standpoint, I mean, it's they could continue on it as is, and to
Yeah.
no harm to anybody really, other than
They,
we just would
yeah.
like to know.
Yeah. And they would have to change their label a little bit to be in compliance. But
Oh,
again,
okay, yeah,
so, but if they would do that, like that's the thing, is if they would put on the double hooked, you know, a blend of bourbon straights, which they could, or a blend of bourbon, then they could have additives in it and things like that. Blend of, or maybe it's blend of bourbon and whiskey is his technical term. Uh, and they could do all of that, be completely in compliance, say this comes from wherever, and this is what we're doing. And it's there are people that would still buy it. And then there's, of course, I've seen a couple people say things like, why do you care? It's good. I would like to know what it is I am consuming. And that's the purpose of the label and the standards and everything like that, is so I know what product I'm buying. That's, I mean, at the end of the day, that's the whole reason the Van Winkles shut down the secondary market on Facebook, or tried to, was they were scared somebody would buy a bottle of Happy Van Winkle that was altered, drink it, and then they would be held liable because that person got sick or something like that. So again,
yeah, that's
this
the
is some,
extreme, but
yeah, but this is something we're consuming, and so I would say as a consumer, I am ingesting it. I should have the right to know everything about it.
I mean, to play devil's advocate here, I mean, this is bourbon history, right?
Yeah,
Like this just takes us back.
to rectifiers. Yeah,
Yeah, right. It's been
yeah.
going on since the beginning of time.
So overall thoughts, just on the,
Overall, I think it's a good whiskey. I hate
yeah.
that honestly, now that I'm drinking this, like I have that thought in my head. I'm like, what else? Like this is overly sweet,
Mhm.
or leans towards the sweet side of things that I've had. In that it's like I said, a spicy peach finish. Um, that's kind of interesting, enjoyable,
Yeah,
especially at the price point.
yeah,
But I'm like, is there anything else in there?
yeah. And that's the, yeah, that's what it comes down to. I think the best thing is, and that's what we would do if for some reason we felt like this was a best of or anything, we just put it in the whiskey category with the caveat of we don't know 100% that it's straight bourbon. So it's good. Uh, yeah, if you're okay with some of the questionality and not knowing everything, definitely pick it up. But as far as like, can we 100% recommend it? I don't think we can, but we can recommend it's good, whatever it is. Cockroach juice or straight bourbon. I don't know what.
Juice. Hey, that's some good cockroach juice right there.
All right. So with that, we will see you next time, and cheers.
Stay neat.